The truth of the matter is that the challenge isn't just, it's the mental transition required, right? I would say take a self-assessment, an honest self-assessment before touching any materials that you have available at your disposal. Most importantly, you need to build a support system early.
What does a ideal weekly plan for somebody who is preparing for this certification actually? So how does it look like?
An ideal schedule balances consistency with sustainability. That's the key thing.
So how can someone avoid this burnout during this preparation, Wilson?
The value isn't your score, so don't look after what you're scoring when you are doing your mock tests. It is.
So now, how is your life after CBAP? Like now you're certified. So what changes or maybe benefits have you noticed after getting certified, Wilson? Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of FuturePath Global, a Techcanvass series where we bring real experiences, practical strategies, and real experiences from professionals across the globe. So in today's topic, which is very, very important, and it focuses on a very challenging state of a BA. Many BAs they face this challenge when they go for this certification journey because it becomes very difficult, like managing your office meetings, office commitments, your personal commitments, right? So, I mean, among this all, how can you get ready for your certification exam? So, to understand this, we have a very special guest today, Mr. Wilson, who is going to simplify this topic, like how someone can balance their work life with this certification preparation journey. Hi, Wilson. Thanks for joining us on FuturePath Global. It's a pleasure to see you here. If you can just begin with a question, like tell us about yourself, your work experience, your certification journey.
Thank you very much, Brijesh, for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. So my journey into business analysis was driven by a desire to bring structure and discipline to solving complex business problems. I spent years working across legal, compliance, financial sectors, and technology sectors. And these roles demand rigorous analytical frameworks and stakeholder management. Now, the CBAP certification became a natural progression because it formalized what I'd learned through experience and elevated my strategic thinking. What makes the certification valuable isn't just the credential itself, it's the paradigm shift. It creates how you approach problems, communicate with executives, and deliver measurable business value. I've since helped professionals prepare for their own certification journeys, and I'm passionate. I'm passionate about this accessible, making this accessible to working professionals who can pause their careers to study. So that's just a brief rundown of my background and how CBAP played a role for me.
Good to know about your work experience, your history, your certification journey. All right. So now, what do you think? Like why this working professionals find this preparation very difficult? Managing their work schedule with the certification preparation.
That's a very important question. And the truth of the matter is that the challenge isn't just time, it's the mental transition required, right? So during your workday, take example, if you're a working 9 to 5 person, you are executing tasks, you are managing deadlines, you're solving immediate problems, right? Then you shift into conceptual learning mode, studying the BABOK, the Business Analysis Body of Knowledge Guide, the theoretical works, and you're doing this while you are mentally exhausted. Let's look at it for instance. The CBAP requires 7,500 hours of experience and deep knowledge across the 6 knowledge areas, which demands both memorization and applied understanding. Now, if you add some layerings, personal layerings like family commitments, commute time, and cognitive load of balancing work stress and study discipline, and then you understand why consistency becomes the greatest barrier. Now, most candidates underestimate this, and this isn't a memorization exercise. It's a scenario-based problem solving under exam conditions, and this tests whether you can apply frameworks in ambiguous situations. So that is where the problem is. So it is the mental transition required. That is why professionals do struggle, especially when preparing for CBAP while managing their full-time 9 to 5 jobs. Yes.
Right, of course. Because CBAP needs a lot of preparation time.
Absolutely.
In fact, like it takes a lot of energy also to get ready for this certification, right? So, I
Yes.
mean, your understanding, what is the best way to start the preparation for somebody who is beginning their certification journey, Wilson?
Yeah, in my honest opinion, I would say take a self-assessment, an honest self-assessment before touching any materials that you have available at your disposal. So you need to map your existing work experience against the six knowledge areas from BABOK. I keep saying BABOK, but BABOK is an acronym for Business Analysts Body of Knowledge, right? So you need to take an assessment, right, and identify which areas you've practiced and which areas you have gaps. Once you've done that, the next thing to do is to audit your schedule for genuine study windows. That's in terms of commutes. What's your commute times? What times do you spend on lunch breaks? Do you have free times in the early mornings? Or how does your weekends look like? And once you do that audit, you commit to protecting those times because those are the times that you use to prepare for the CBAP or IIB, CCB or ECBA, whatever certification you're looking for under the IIBA bouquet. Then you invest quality resources, right? The Babok guide itself is good. You also need to find a reputable training provider that has aligned with the IIBA standards and practice exam platforms. Now, with these three things, you can't go wrong. Then you create a milestone-based calendar that breaks down each knowledge area with realistic completion dates rather than vague goals like study more. Most importantly, you need to build a support system early. Tell your family members, your managers in the office, or your mentor that you are pursuing a certification in IIBA, be it CBAP, for instance, so that they can support your study blocks and hold you accountable as and when due. Yes.
So I got a follow-up question on this. Like, when as you know that there are multi-level certifications in business analysis given by IIB, right? Like ECBA, CCBA, CBAP. So how they should decide the certification, like which certification they should go for, Wilson?
I'll say let your experience and career goals dictate that choice, not just ambition alone, right? ECBA requires the minimal experience and suits early career professionals, establishing the foundational knowledge, while the CCBA demands 3,750 hours of BA work in the past 7 years and suits mid-level analysts seeking validation and structured learning. CBAP, on the other hand, requires 7,500 hours over 10 years with specific distribution across the knowledge areas. And it's designed for senior practitioners ready to demonstrate strategic business analysis leadership. So my advice would be this. If you are, or if you do meet the CBAP eligibility requirements and want to maximize your career impact, I would say go directly for CBAP. It is more challenging, but it's the discipline required transforms your analytical maturity. If you're early in your journey, the CCBA builds confidence and provides the scaffolding for your CBAP later. So don't underestimate any certification because they all are rigorous and when approached seriously.
Based on their work experience, they can choose to go for the right certification, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Perfect. So, what does a ideal weekly plan for somebody like who is preparing for this certification actually? So, how does it look like?
An ideal schedule balances consistency with sustainability. That's the key thing. So allocate, say, one focused hour on weekday evenings, for instance, preferably the same day or the same time daily to build up a habit, and 3 to 4 hours on the weekends when your mindset is fresher. Now, this will give you approximately, say, 11 to 13 hours weekly, translating to the 132 to 156 hours over 3 months, which aligns with the 120 to 160 hour benchmark for the CBAP preparation. Now, structure your week thematically, dedicate weekday sessions to reading and note taking on one knowledge area. Then use the weekends for deeper reviews, practice questions, and create summary flashcards. Build in one rest day weekly because that is important for mental recovery, so as to prevent burnout and help improve retention. Then the key here isn't maximizing hours. That's what we need to get straight. It's protecting consistency. Distraction-free blocks where you're generally learning and not just going through motion. So it's important important that you maximize the hours. It's protecting consistencies, distraction-free blocks, where you're generally learning. It's not just going through the motions. That's what I would say.
Right. I mean, of course. So consistency is very, very important in this preparation. You're right.
Yes.
All right. So now, if you see, certification preparation, managing with your job is really tough, right? Time management study strategies did you see working well in this preparation, Wilson?
That's a good question, and I would say the most effective strategy will be micro learning optimization, which is leveraging your downtime, the downtime you already have, rather than creating an entirely new time block. While converting that commute time, for instance, when you're commuting from your home to your workplace, converting that time into an audio learning phase where you're listening to the Babok concepts summaries or recorded lectures, that would help. And it can save you 40 to 50 hours of dedicated study time. You can also use your lunch breaks or gaps between meetings for flashcard reviews using any mobile app that you have that supports those flashcard reviews type of scenarios, and batch similar activities. Dedicate weeknights to reading and comprehension, then reserve the weekends for practice exams and synthesis. But one thing is important when you are building all this, you need to communicate these boundaries clearly, both in your workplace and at home, and block low level activities during preparations periods. So reduce your the use of your social media, your binge watching on your favorite series on the popular streaming platforms, or commitments that don't align with your certification goal. 3 months of focused sacrifice will create a decade of professional advantage. That's why it's important that you put a time box in and ensure that you do this dedicatedly and consistently over 3 months, because that is when you build that consistency. That's when you build the competencies and you build that preparedness that will enable you prepare and pass the examinations in the long run.
Yeah, great insight actually. Right. So, in your experience, what works well, whether it is early morning study or late evenings or weekend focused preparation. So, what works well in your understanding, Wilson?
It depends entirely on your chronotype and energy patterns. So early morning study works brilliantly if you are naturally alert at dawn and can take work before family and work demands consume your mental bandwidth. Late night suits those the night owls, like you say. But beware of the cognitive fatigue after a full day's work, right? Your comprehension and retention suffers when you're exhausted. That's one thing I'll say about those that prefer studying at late nights. Weekend study offers longer, uninterrupted blocks. And this weekend blocks are ideal for practice exams and deep dive reviews. But don't save everything for the weekend, because you would lose momentum if you don't do anything during the weekdays. So my recommendation would be this: experiment during the first 2 weeks to discover when your retention peaks. Then lock that time as sacred. Yeah. Use your peak energy windows for challenging conceptual learnings, and save administrative tasks like organizing notes for lower energy periods. Consistency in timing matters, and more than specific time you choose. Your brain adapts to your routine, basically. Yeah. So that's it. That's what I'll say.
Great. So that means you can perform different tasks at different time frames.
Absolutely.
Right. So now, in your experience and understanding, what are the most common mistakes this BAs they do in their preparation journey?
In my experience, about 5 of them. The first one is the costliest mistake, which is over reliance on third party materials while neglecting the Babok guide itself. Yes, we know that training providers offer excellent frameworks, but the exam tests Babok in verbatim. So they look for the Babok language, the definitions, and the scenarios. You cannot pass without having a deep Babok fluency. Now, the second thing would be candidates avoid practice exams just for the fear of the demotivation if they fail. But one thing they do while you are preventing that demotivation is that you're robbing yourself of a critical assessment, self-assessment, and exam readiness calibration. So it's important that as often as possible, prepare for exams, write to exams, away preparation exams, just to gauge how far off you are, and it helps with your self-assessment. The third would be many treat the preparation as a memorization phase rather than an application. The CBAP is a scenario-based examination, requiring you to analyze situations and select the appropriate techniques, and not just recall definitions. So that's important to note. The thought would be that candidates underestimate the importance of understanding which tasks belongs to which knowledge areas, and this would obviously causes confusion during exam navigation. And finally, many study inconsistently, using what we call the CPF method. You cram, you pour, and forget. So, but cramming before the exam rather than building a cumulative knowledge always fails, because the BABOK requires layered understanding where later concepts build on earlier foundations. So these are the 5 common mistakes people have when preparing for the CBAP examination.
Great. Nicely explained, Wilson.
Yeah.
All right. So now, as you know, that this certification takes a lot of time, energy, and of course, I mean, there are chances that someone may burn out. Like, so how can someone avoid this burnout during this preparation, Wilson?
I'll say burnouts. You can avoid burnouts by setting realistic goals and built-in recovery, right? You just can't go on a stretch preparing for the examination without giving out times for recovery. So, but one key thing is you set small, achievable daily targets. Your goals must be smart. They must be specific. They must be measurable, achievable. They must be realistic and time bound, right? For instance, complete one knowledge area subsection rather than overwhelming goals that breed discouragement. So you take mandatory 5 minutes, 10 minutes break every hour during your study sessions to prevent against mental fatigue, right? And then you incorporate a one full rest day weekly where you don't touch your study materials, right? Because this will allow your brain to consolidate on what you've learned so far. And it's important to celebrate milestone completions with meaningful awards. Maybe a dinner out after finishing knowledge area, or a weekend off after your first practice exam. One thing is to combat inconsistency by habit stacking. So that means like you attach study sessions to existing routines. For instance, like saying immediately after dinner or before morning coffee, then you track your progress visibly with calendars or apps to create a positive momentum. Most importantly, remember your why. Why are you doing this in the first place? You have to anchor your why, because that drives your motivation. So reconnect weekly with your career advancement, your salary increase, or professional credibility that you're pursuing. Because in the end, purpose defeats procrastination.
So now, what mindset is needed from a person who is a full-time working professional? So how can they be disciplined and focused for this preparation, Wilson?
I'll say adopt a professional athlete mindset where you are training for performance and not just cramming for survival. This will simply mean approaching the preparation with curiosity and passion rather than obligation. Business analysis at its core is about questioning, analyzing, and solving problems with disciplined frameworks. Your preparations should also mirror these mindsets. Embracing challenges such as skills building opportunities rather than obstacles. So when your practice questions do frustrate you, recognize that confusion is where the learning happens, right? Cultivate that self-belief rooted in evidence. Track your progress, review your improvements, and acknowledge growth. You have to have a mindset shift of I must pass this exam to I am becoming a strategically a valuable business analyst. This identity-based motivation sustains discipline when the willpower eventually fades, because of course your willpower will fade. So you have to have that mindset. And finally, practice intellectual humility. The certification reveals gaps in your knowledge, which is precisely why it is valuable. So you're not proving competence, you are systematically building it.
Great, nice. So, in your understanding, like what is more important, consistency or spending more hours in preparation, Wilson?
That's a very good question because people think spending more hours is what it is. But the absolute truth is that consistency trumps volume any day, anytime. 7 hours spread across 7 days beats a single 7 hour marathon. Yeah, because spaced repetition would enhance long term retention while cramming right, would create short-term recall and that would fade quickly. So daily engagement keeps the concept fresh and builds that neural pathway through repeated exposure. Moreover, consistent small sessions prevents that overwhelm and procrastination that accompanies the large, intimidating study blocks. So, for instance, I'll give you an instance. One successful working parent passed their CBAP by studying 1 hour, just 1 hour nightly, 6 days weekly. That modest daily investment compounded over months. So that's what it means. So consistency also builds automaticity. For instance, that means studying at the same time daily because it reduces that decision fatigue and establishes a habit. So think of it as fitness. 20 minutes of daily exercise transforms your health more than this occasional intense workouts where you take 50 to 1 hour, 50 minutes to 1 hour just once in a blue moon. So the certification rewards disciplined accumulation of knowledge, not just the heroic last minute efforts. So protects your daily commitments even when the progress feels slow. It's a compounding interest of learning that makes everything happen. I would say adopt things like the Kaizen and the Pomodoro technique. The Kaizen is where you are increasing, having a 1% increments in your learning strategy every day, as against stacking it up and doing 7 hours or doing that last minute fire brigade approach. That helps to build the resilience. That helps to build competency while you are preparing for your CBAP examination.
Right, of course. I mean, so consistency is very important with the proper time management, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what study tools or maybe study material or apps would you recommend for somebody who is going for this preparation, Wilson?
I'll say start with the IIBA online learning portal for authoritative access to the Babok guide, webinars, practice quiz directly aligned with the exam standards. Then I'll say that you invest in reputable training providers such as Techcanvass, for instance, because they offer CBAP aligned courses, study guides, and exam simulators with over 1,200 plus practice questions. Then I'll say use flashcard platforms if they are available with spaced reputation and algorithms. If you have that, then for practical application, I'll say leverage on visualization tools such as Lucid Charts, Microsoft Visio to create the process maps and workflows from the Babok templates, bridging that theory with the real practice. And I'll say, finally, join the IIB local chapters or online study groups for peer accountability and knowledge sharing. The right tools don't replace digital and disciplined studies, but they amplify efficiency and provide a structured pathway through dense materials.
Very useful tips, Wilson. Right. So now, so in your understanding, how mock tests and simulations are important in building your confidence and readiness for this preparation, Wilson?
Mock tests are absolutely critical, in my own understanding and my opinion, because they are your diagnostic instrument and confidence builder. So they do two things. It's your diagnostic instrument and it's a confidence builder. So practice exams reveal your knowledge gaps, timing issues, question interpretation weakness that reading alone cannot expose. Now, I would say take 3 to 5 full-length mock exams on that time conditions before your actual exam, simulating the real life or the real experience. The value isn't your score, so don't look after what you're scoring when you are doing your mock tests. It is the deep analysis of every mistake. It gives an opportunity of analyzing all the mistakes you make and not your score. Did you misunderstand the scenario, for instance? Misidentifying the knowledge area, or are you confusing similar techniques? Now, this forensic review transforms errors into targeted learning opportunities. Mock tests also build the psychological resilience. You learn to manage exam anxiety, pace yourself across the 120 questions, and maintain focus during the 3-hour session. Additionally, simulators do teach you how to flag difficult questions strategically and return to them later rather than getting stuck. Candidates who avoid practice questions due to fear or low scores sabotage their preparation and the preparation strategy entirely. So early failure is data, not defeat. Embrace your mock exams as rehearsals rather than ensuring and I'll say embrace that mock exams as rehearsals that ensures your opening night success. And During your mock test, you would also understand how to navigate through, sticky questions, for instance, use case scenarios, case study questions that would take you a lot of time. Once you are familiarized with such exam scenarios, you know well to flag them and come back to them later while you deal with the low hanging fruit, quick questions that you can answer within under 2 to 5 seconds. That way, you claw back time to focus on the scenario based questions that will probably take you much time to address or answer.
Yeah, simulations are very, very helpful in order to get ready for this 3 hours long duration examination. Right now, you have cleared CBAP, Wilson. Right. So as you know that it's a very tough certification exam, right? And now you're certified. So I mean, what made you crack this certification successfully, and how Techcanvass was helpful in your certification journey, Wilson?
That's a very good question, and I'll say what's ultimately made a difference was treating the CBAP preparation as a professional project with a defined scope, milestones, and deliverables. Applying the business analysis discipline to my own learning, right? That's what made it a bit different and made me pass my exams. I created a detailed study plan, mapping each knowledge areas to specific weeks, tracked my progress against the milestones, and conducted weekly retrospectives on what was working. Techcanvass provided a structured framework and scenario-based practice that bridged the theoretical knowledge with the exam application. Their mock exams were particularly valuable because they mimicked the exam scenario's complexity and question phrasing, training me to think like the exam writers. Beyond the materials, Techcanvass's expert instructors clarified nuanced distinctions between similar techniques, the kind of subtleties that separate passing from failing. Most importantly, I am committed to deep Babok mastery rather than shortcut seeking. So, reading each knowledge area multiple times and summarizing my own words helps. This mindset shifted was critical, essential, because I stopped trying to pass an exam and started genuinely becoming a more strategic business analyst.
It's a pleasure to be a part of your learning journey, your certification journey. So now, how is your life after CBAP? Like now you're certified. So what changes or maybe benefits have you noticed after getting certified, Wilson?
Well, CBAP, the certification fundamentally elevated my professional positioning and expanded my opportunity access. Immediately, it provided credibility in senior stakeholder conversations for me, C-suite executives, and clients' trust, just knowing that I'm CBAP certified. And CBAP certified to handle complex strategic initiatives without constant oversight. I also noticed an increased invitations to lead high visibility projects, participating in strategic planning sessions, and advising on organizational transformation efforts. And CBAP also opened, doors to roles with significantly higher compensation bands and consulting opportunities that require certified expertise. Now, beyond these tangible benefits, the certification transformed my analytical maturity. I approach problems with a greater structure, communicate recommendations with clearer frameworks, and design solutions with more comprehensive stakeholder considerations. Perhaps the most valuable was joining the global community of five professionals who collaborate, share insights, and create the networking opportunities. So the certification signals commitments to professional excellence, which differentiates you in the competitive market in the long run. So post CBAP life isn't just about the credential alone. It's about the competence and the confidence the journey builds.
Thank you so much, Wilson, for sharing your certification journey, your insights, like the tips and tricks which you have given. So I'm sure that it is going to help many BAs who are planning to get this IIB CBAP certification. Thank you so much once again, Wilson.
Thank you, Brijesh, for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you so much, Wilson. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights, your practical experiences, and sharing your tips about getting ready for this certification exam. I'm sure your story will help many BAs who are getting ready for this certification preparation. To our viewers, remember one thing: right strategy and a structured study plan will surely help you in getting this certification. Though you are, you're on a full-time job. So this is Brijesh, and it was FuturePath Global. Thank you so much.